All right, we're live. And we're rolling.
Both cameras going.
And only about 25 minutes on my timer, so I can... This will be a little bit longer than 25 minutes, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think this show is going to definitely go over the 25-minute rule.
But it's good to have that reminder, you know?
It is good to have the reminder. And the good thing is now we can actually load. We've figured out how to load Facebook Live.
Already?
Yeah, people are in already. Yeah.
Aloha!
Aloha.
I'm Shane.
My name is Joey.
I'm David.
Welcoming David back from his adventures.
So good to have you back. Tell us where you were.
For the past few weeks, I was on the island of Molokai doing some natural farming with a Hawaiian uncle that is living right next to Monsanto.
How about that? So, just a quick little backstory on this podcast. We're slowly but surely growing and expanding, and right now we're sort of at the infancy stages of this podcast. And
Content. We're making content.
Yeah, we're bringing on content. We're making contact. Joey here. This is his brainchild, and I'm just really thankful that this is actually happening in our lives, and we're working together, and now we have David back on our team. So it's not that it feels complete to me. I'm just super excited that we're rolling in this direction, and kind of like the roles that we play here is Joey's steering the ship. I'm contributing and in my ways with the bees, and then David now here kind of is able to fact check on anything, because everything is pretty much freeform here, and you know, I don't always know what the fuck I'm talking about. So David can come in and chime in and help and look up anything that we're talking about.
Well, I feel like, if there's anything that I've got some experience with, it's podcasting. I've been getting into it since last summer, and I'm by no means an expert on it, and it's all just an experiment and an adventure in social media and putting things out there into the world. It's an experiment in just truth and transparency and feedback, and seeing what sort of people are listening or viewing, and what sort of things that they have to contribute as well through comments. You can, I started an email, beautifulbboys@gmail.com. You can contact us through that. You can contact us through Facebook. And all these are going to be uploaded onto YouTube. There's already the first 3 episodes on YouTube. Shane obviously is a expert in his realm with bees. He's a grand student of the bees. And David he's got expertise in the realm of Korean natural farming. And both you guys have been here on the island a lot longer than I have. So I'm stoked to be a part of it, and it's very exciting to just be learning not only about bees and Korean natural farming, but learning more about this community here. And I'm fired up.
Shall we get into the meat of it? I mean, this is a pretty exciting topic. I'm actually fucking nervous. I'm really nervous to talk about this stuff. We're this topic in itself is a big debate. Monsanto in itself has been vilified by many, and what I'm learning in my personal growth, whether you call it spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, whatever, my growth period, I'm starting to understand that simply by demonizing anything, I attract it, and I'm learning to let go of that and find not necessarily the beauty in everything, but the understanding that we're all here working together, no matter how bad one looks and how good one looks. We're all here working together, so how are we going to harmonize a little bit more, a little bit better? How are we going to tune into the frequencies that allow us to really, truly work together and be part of this hive.
I think it's easy to, with something like a corporation, like Monsanto, for me, it's easy to look at it like this big faceless entity of, it's this machine that's churning stuff, and it's this powerful entity. But there are people that make up this entity, and there are plenty of people that are just trying to find a good job and feed their families, and maybe they're all about agriculture, and this is their way into that world, and they're making a difference in whatever way they know how to. And so I think it can be really troublesome, vilifying and dehumanizing. I mean, a corporation legally is a person these days, but I don't know. I'm not as informed, obviously, as some people. So,
well, let me start out just by telling a quick story. A lot of people that know me know this story. A lot of people that live on this island know the story. I don't talk about it very much because this was back in the day when I did vilify things and people, and I was very hardened on my opinion, on my way of doing things, and I've since let go of that. But I think the main thing is I never have been one to accept the programming that I was given. I question everything, and I don't just let what somebody tells me be the fact. Although I appreciate the information. Thank you for sharing. Yes, I'm just going to do my own research. Thank you. And bees are dying and disappearing. Colony collapse disorder is what we find ourselves currently dealing with. And it's taken the world by storm, for lack of better words. And when I moved to this island, that was my mission. I started a nonprofit. I wanted to come here, and I wanted to learn everything that I could possibly learn about bees.
Saving the world by swarm.
Saving the world by swarm. Son of a biscuit. That's great. Saving the world by swarm. So, I mean, literally, if you haven't heard about bees, then you're living under some kind of rock, I guess. Like it's pretty much everything and anything right now. And it has been for a couple of years. And when I first heard about it about 8 or 9 or so years ago, I really was interested in doing something about it. And I just didn't know what could one person do. So make a long story short, I went through some things on the mainland, started doing wild hive removals, and then came here. This is, in my opinion, the bee capital of the world. 3 of the largest queen breeding companies in the world are on this island, which we are going to reference here pretty soon. And I got a job with, I didn't even need to get a job when I moved here. I thought that I sold my landscaping business, and I thought I was going to have some income, but I unfortunately, the guy that bought it never paid me for it, so I had to get a job to support my family. I didn't go get this job just specifically to do the research to find out why bees were dying and disappearing, but it just worked out that way. I wanted to get into a commercial bee industry to see everything that was going on, but also to feed my family. I really was in a desperate way. We were living in a tiny hut in the jungle, and some of you have heard this story before, but I was sleeping on a yoga mat while my wife and daughter slept on a twin mattress. And not gonna lie, I cried myself to sleep some nights, and it was a humbling experience that I absolutely needed, and I'm really thankful for the experience. But yeah, along the way, I started to see, I'm like, well, obviously this is why bees are dying and disappearing. Look how we're treating them. We're giving all these ghastly chemicals. We're artificially inseminating, which is just a fancy way to say rape. I mean, you look at the cattle industry, you look at the sheep and quite a few other animals. It's the way that mating is happening now. It's artificial insemination, and everything is a reflection. And I think we often forget that. Everything is a reflection. So if we're artificially inseminating, if we're raping nature, well then that will reflect within us. There is obvious, rape happening within us. And And I personally would like to see that change. And once again, it's really hard not to vilify shit, especially when it comes to rape. Like I could actually justify murder, but rape is one thing that I don't see the reflection. And it's sometimes hard to not vilify, like I said. So anyway, back to the story. I got along really well in that company and learned a lot, and I started really growing and expanding with my bee knowledge, and I got promoted right away with that company. You know, I was always quick to do whatever job was in front of us, and things were going well with that company. I really love the owner, and that's one thing that I want to make very clear is that I absolutely love the owner of that company. That man cares about the people that work for him, with him. He like I've been discovering, if you work with bees, you love bees. I don't care how you work with them, you love them. And that is becoming more and more important for me to see that side to everyone. Anyway, I was doing a fundraiser for my nonprofit to get it off the ground, and I took a bunch of video. I didn't name the company. I didn't name the person that owned the company, and I put that video out there. And I didn't even put the bad stuff on there. I did put a couple of things on there that showed a bunch of dead bees and how we gas them and they die from it. And I had just gotten a $2 an hour raise, and I got fired. I got let go when I launched that Indiegogo campaign after they saw the video. And I was informed that it was a conflict of interest, which it absolutely is, and I understand that. I wasn't shocked that I got fired. But what I was shocked about is just how quickly everything happened, and how story can go off and not really have any relevance whatsoever. But prior to that, along the way, there was this commercial queen company on the other side of the island. I won't, once again, I'm not going to, if you want to find out the names of these companies, go ahead and do that research on your own. We will name some companies, obviously, that are aligned with Monsanto, some of the larger companies like U.S. Honeybee, and some other names like, we'll get to that later. But anyway, there were these people doing research with the company that I was working for that were from overseas, and I found it interesting. I found it really intriguing. I also found some practices that I didn't necessarily agree with. And, we since 1908, we are not allowed, this island, Hawaii, is not allowed to bring semen or bees, no more importing, because of the Africanized especially. That's super important now. But however, magically, there was a new semen. And I see these new faces, so I really started doing some research, and I happened to be across the island one day and on a coffee farm where this large commercial queen breeding company was, and I saw the same person that was doing research with the company that I was working for on the east side of the island, on the west side of the island with this commercial queen company. And that hit me. I was like, okay, I am no longer taking what I'm being told as fact. And I want to find out. I want to find out what's going on here. So I started doing all the research I possibly could. And before that company got sold, I found out they were being sold. And of course, you couldn't find the name of the company. I couldn't find any information. And I think we all know now, too, that Monsanto, that at least genetically modified foods are not good for bees. The neonicotinoid itself kills bees. So I think it's common knowledge now. There's nothing to debate or dispute. But, it's not good. So to kind of round out the story, I got let go. And that kind of catapulted me to doing things on my own, which is where I'm at today. The nonprofit is not really well funded yet. And that's a big part of what we're doing now, is we're doing everything we can to raise all the money so that we can bridge the gap between the commercial industry, which, if I'm going to vilify it, I mean, it's destroying bees, and then this other realm where I would consider it or call it maybe a bee guardianship, where we're more spiritually connected with bees and seeing the reflection. Rudolf Steiner is a name that comes to my mind. He's a man that bridged the gap between science and spirituality way back in the day. And I'll end my little spiel here with a quote from him. And it was, well, not necessarily a quote, I'll just sum it up. That bees, in 80 years, he said this in the 20s, bees will die and disappear mainly due to egg selection and artificial insemination. And boy, he was pretty prophetic, you know. It's happening. And you would need to spend some serious time in educating yourself and understanding why. But if I could sum that up, it's you have all these genetics out there, all these beautiful, let's just equate it to people, brown, all different colors and ethnicities of people, and you decide to focus on just a few. And you continue to breed those same few genetics in over and over and over again because it's what you like. It's what you have chosen to be the best, superior. And as we know throughout history, when we do that, it's not good. And that's what's happening in the bee world when we do egg selection and artificial insemination. How can a human select an egg? How can a human select a semen when a bee naturally does it on her own? Leave her to do that. Leave the queen to get mated on her own. And what do we have? We have a commercial world. We have a commercial demand for honey. We have a commercial demand for queens. And we as Americans here in the United States actually cannot even meet the supply and demand as of now. We can't meet it. We have to import tons and tons of honey from all over the world. And as you know now from these documentaries that you're seeing on Netflix and YouTube, it's fucked. Chemicals, it's not even honey. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and end my long rant there. And once again, just reminding everyone that I feel like I'm here to bridge the gap between the commercial world and the spiritual world of bees. And it's very near and dear to my heart. And I'm no longer vilifying anyone, even Monsanto. And I'm understanding that we're all here to work together, and I really wish that merging for us all. Thank
you, Shane. I mean, every time, I've heard you, describe parts of what you were just sharing, and just every time I hear your perspective on it, it becomes a little bit more clear for me. And I just wanted to just emphasize or just clarify a little bit. I'm noticing people's comments, and a lot of people are like, villains are villains. You don't have to feel bad for calling something what they are. And I don't want to deny that. I mean, evil exists in the world. I believe that. I think evil can manifest through human beings, and there's some very despicable behavior, and I'd even say there's some very despicable people out there who have a lot of power. And I think that was something that came up when David just got back the other day from Molokai and was sharing some of his experiences there and some of the things that he saw and felt about what's going on. And there's approaches that have been taken over in history about standing up against evil and standing up for justice and what's right. And when violence and villainy is met with violence and villainy or hate, then it just creates more of that. And we're talking about ourselves as reflections, know. And there are, I think there's more skillful and wise ways to approach a problem like this. I don't know exactly what the approach or the answer is, but I know that there's just smarter and kinder ways to really just suss out what's going on and start making like a grassroots like informed movement around it.
Well, I think basically the bottom line is I perceive greed, doing things with bees, in the name of money. I perceive that as being a downfall, and I just choose to come from my heart now, recognizing that and not doing my best not to vilify it anymore. And yeah, it is okay to vilify. Yes, there is the obvious evil. It's just I'm choosing not to focus on that. And,
Well,
and
we
get
have some
lost.
ideas for some solutions.
Yeah.
And so
So I really appreciate both your perspective and acknowledging that, as soon as we villainize someone or an entity, it creates a separation. So I had the privilege of doing some research on Monsanto yesterday extensively, and before I could even get into the headspace of, researching the topic, I needed to empty my mind, and I did some research on non-duality. And to understand non-duality, we can first define what duality is. And
real quick before you get going, can everybody hear David all right? You might want to even,
Yeah,
if you want to get
speak up a
closer.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
we
get a
get
little
closer.
we
So
make
yeah,
sure that
so
it's getting across.
So to define duality, there's two essential ingredients. The first is the mind on the inside, which is made up of our thoughts, images, and feelings, and then matter on the outside, which we perceive as like separate. So the separation between mind and matter. And then non-duality is there is no distinction between the mind and matter. So there's the fundamental reality that that we're all experiencing, the multiplicity of it. There's an indivisible mind that is basically making up like the oneness of this whole picture. So trying to recognize that we are all one, even if one's individual consciousness is aware of something that someone else may not be aware of. If anything, it's our duty to share it.
Yeah.
And they said like the two examples of non-duality are love and beauty. So when you look at like your lover and you're just in this awe, there is no separation between you and them. You're just allowing everything to be in that experience. So before kind of diving in depth into Monsanto, like I really tried to focus on getting into that headspace.
I think that I think this is crucial because if there's any sort of, I mean, you can get burned out, and like just even bringing this up, it's almost like I had this realization. I've got to put on my harmony armor.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, how deep down the Monsanto rabbit hole do I want to go? Is what I was asking myself, because it can just be a huge bummer. You know, it can just like how bad can things get? Let's find out. And where are we right now? So
we're looking at our shadow.
Yeah,
We're staring at our shadow.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize your shadow, your quote unquote evil side, your bad side, whatever you want to label it. It's important. And then reflect that back to one another. So that's what David is talking about. He's talking about getting in a good centered space. That way, like Joey said, you don't get burnt out, basically. But anyway, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I kind of did some research, and as some of you may know, there was a court ruling that found that glyphosate causes like cancer, and the worker was awarded like $289 million. And then 2 days after that, General Mills released a statement saying, quote, "Our products are safe, and without question, they meet regulatory safety levels." That was from Fast Company. And then on Monsanto's website, they also state that the claims that they made are invalid, and they're lacking evidence between the case that the EWG made. And the EWG is the Environmental Working Group. They found that 43 out of the 45 like general cereals, which include Cheerios, Lucky Charms, Kellogg's, and etc., contain glyphosate in their products. So they kind of said that. They also came out with a statistic that said they came out with another study in 2014 that said that those 43 out of the 45 cereals have extremely high sugar content, and that 250 million pounds of pesticides were sprayed on American soil in 2014, and that number has been exponentially growing. But a big red flag that that I noticed on Monsanto's website was they have a space on their website that says they want to save the bees and that they really love the bees, and they have a little part that says, oh, check out our consensus by the USDA study that shows that the pesticides that we've been spraying don't have an ill effect on the bees. And when you click on the link, it's broken. And there's many broken links on Monsanto that basically every time they try to reference some sort of study or material, it just redirects you to a 404 page or their homepage, and it's kind of hard to get the information. So I dug a little bit deeper, and I found out that in 2012, Monsanto forms a honeybee advisory council.
Ugh.
And there's over 100 members on the council, but on the board of directors, there's 5 key names. There's one, her name's Diana Cox. She's a PhD professor of entomology at Penn State. There's David Mendels, who's a commercial beekeeper and was a past president of the American Beekeeping Foundation. There's Larry Johnson, who's a commercial row farmer and a commercial beekeeper. And then the last one is Gus Roos, who is I don't know if he's the owner, but he's associated with the Kona Queen beekeeping company. And when I saw that, I was like, that threw up a red flag. And then I was like, okay, like let's dig a little deeper. Like maybe they do love the bees. So they have this thing on their website. It's like a pollinator spray that their council recommends that you spray on the bees. And what is in the spray is that neonicotinoid.
Neonicotinoid.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to, please hold your thought for a second. So, wording is super important on the Monsanto website. The things that they spray, blah, 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 on the crops are not necessarily doing damage. The neonicotinoid actually, it's actually in the seed now. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so I looked up what that neonicotinoid is, and they found in like 2014 they did a study on rats, and they found that it basically destroyed their internal central nervous system, and that was a study from UNC Chapel Hill, and they also basically concluded that it's detrimental to human health, and there are links to cancer. So yeah, just when that pesticide is sprayed, it gets into the roots and the leaves and into the plants and into the seed and into the flower, and it's something that is directly linked to the death of bees. And it's just interesting that Monsanto's solution to their advisory council is to spray that pesticide on their plants and like buy their package and just keep continuing out this whole process. So when I found that, I was just like kind of like, what is going on? Like what the fuck? Like.
And what I want to know is how can Gus how can Gus be on this committee, be on this thing formed by Monsanto, and own a commercial, one of the large, actually I think they are and have been the largest commercial breeding company in the world. How, isn't that quite the conflict of interest there? So obviously somebody else thought of that besides me a couple of years ago. And then of course magically this super profitable company, one of the most profitable companies in the world when it comes to bees, is magically sold. And yeah, I know I'm a conspiracy theorist, and all that stuff, and I did pre-emphasis my all this earlier with I just question everything, okay? I don't believe in the programming that has been downloaded into this brain. I just want to dig as deep as I can go. So, when I saw those people working, doing research with the company that I was working for, and then I happened to be on the other side of the island in a yard where those Kona bees were, and Kona queen bees were, and saw that same person, I knew something was going on. And that was about 2 months before Kona Queens got sold or bought. And I had a really difficult time doing the research to actually find the company that bought it. And, you know, I don't even know really if that information is out there. If that is, it should be public information, but I sure can't find it. But it obviously now, though, we're seeing these names tied in. And U.S. Honeybee is the company that bought it. So I would like to even do some more research. So when you get done talking, if you could go on that and do some more research on U.S. Honeybee, and you guys can, while you're watching this, if you want to just Google U.S. Honeybee and see if any more names pop up that are pretty familiar.
Yeah, two more things I wanted to add was the neonicotinoid. Another study that they did, despite human and bee health, is they said that the U.S. Geological Survey found that it's contaminating the watershed, so it's having detrimental effects on the environment, and it's getting into the water, and here's kind of a little interesting fact. It says that like one third of all the food and beverages that we commercially consume are pollinated by honeybees, and the industry is roughly between a 20 and a 30 billion dollar industry. And if we think about like the most important meal of the day, breakfast is almost impossible in the Western mindset without the honeybee, because you have what? Your coffee gets pollinated by the honeybees. Oh, you want creamer in your coffee? Well, the majority of cows are fed by alpha sprouts, which are pollinated by honeybees. Oh, you want juice? Well, the fruits are pollinated by the trees. And the list kind of goes on and on with like jams and stuff like that. So you really, like, there is no separation between us and them, because like if they collapse, then we collapse. And one more thing is there's the U.S. Honeybee Coalition, which is something that Monsanto supports. So anyone who's buying honey at Costco, at the Kirtland brand, there's the Honeybee Coalition symbol that kind of looks like a fancy thing. That's also a product that's supported by Monsanto. So they're getting their name on labels that aren't necessarily directly associated, but they have their ties within the industry. What did you want me to check out?
Just the U.S. Honeybee Company.
Okay.
U.S. Honeybee Company. Start rattling off all the names that you can possibly find. So what I've been sharing, you know, whenever I help indoctrinate or introduce bees to people that are interested in it, and people that are really interested in it, like these two, for example. I've had a couple other interns that are so interested. When they're done with my intern program, they've traveled the world studying bees and going through different programs like the College of the Melissa, and you know, names like Laura B. You know, like learning from people like that. It's literally like there's this split in the real world where there's one type of bee. Research and study, and it's more of like an intuition. It's more like the guardianship. It's more of working with bees in a spiritual manner, in a spiritual way, seeing their reflection. And then there's the matrix, if you want to call it that, or the commercial industry. And in that realm, there is so much education that we do need. Absolutely. You cannot just jump right into working with bees and all of a sudden say that I'm the best I possibly can be. I'm an intuitive. I'm following my intuition, working with these bees, working with these creatures in an intuitive way, and I got this. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to have both. You have to have the education of both in order to really, really dial in what the bees and what we need. And Jamie Ellis is, in my opinion, you know, like on the matrix side of things. I've studied him for years and years, and his biologies and learning things from him, by him, have taught me so much that without that information, I don't know where I would be. And then, you know, people like Rudolf Steiner, getting information from him. And then, of course, the book of all books, The Shamanic Way of the Bee, it really opened up this whole new realm for me. When I read that book, I had goosebumps or chicken skin almost the entire time I read that book, and I don't really like reading, I'll admit it. I do my research mostly through video, but I'd say probably about 70% through video. And reading is the rest. And that book I read so fast, time became completely irrelevant. And it completely opened up a whole new world for me. And that's the world in which I really resonate with the bees. They're such an amazing creature. And I now, thanks to them, have a completely different perspective on life. And I really understand just how important their role is. And the words, the play on words is really what blows me away. Like pollination, little keywords that just pop up. Like what happened the other day? Oh shit! I got all excited. I came running into the kitchen.
Oh, you were saying pollination, something that rhymed with pollination.
Vibration.
Pollination, vibration.
And then we got the harmony armor, which is the chitin. And I mean, there's just my mind for some reason is blanking right now, of course. But there's just all of these words, like birds and the bees. You tell these stories to your kids that the birds and the bees talk, but you don't even know what you're saying anymore. Now it's this uncomfortable conversation, and you don't even mention bees in it. The only mention of bees is saying the birds and the bees. I got to talk about the birds and the bees with you, when actually. The true story of the birds and the bees, the reason why we call it that is because of what they're doing. It's about pollination. It's about tuning into the frequency of the flower, and that stamen is the sexual organ of that tree or that plant, and the bees are vibrating with that flower. And they have these little hairs on their backs, and their wings are flapping. It creates static electricity. That static electricity acts as a message. This is all scientifically proven now, too. So you can bridge that gap right now with me and you, the spiritual and science gap, bridge it with the bee and see that static electricity that they're creating is a message. It travels into the stamen, into the flower, into the branch, into the trunk of the tree, down into the roots. And the microbes in the soil are activated by that original bee's static electricity. That message from the bee, and that message is, you can be pollinated now. I'm here to pollinate you. Open up your flowers. So the microbes pour all this energy into the roots, into the dirt, feeding this tree, giving it the ability to open up all these flowers. Now all the flowers are open. All the bees are pollinating. This vibration is not only in the tree, not only in the bee, not only in the soil, but now you walk barefoot on that soil, and that vibration enters your body. And now you are all in harmony. And that is pollination. That is love. That is the vibration. That is the frequency in which we get to operate. And the further that we get away from that, in this commercialized industry, the monocropping, the monofarming, the chemicals, it's ridding of the ability to feel that vibration. And that is the true story of the birds and the bees. The less attractive part of that is the bird's roll, which the seed that comes from that pollination now falls to the ground. The bee eats the bird eats the seed and shits it out. That nitrogen-rich poop that's encasing that seed sprouts it, and the whole story starts all over again. And that is the story you need to be telling your children about the birds and the bees, and the impact that it reminds us that the bees have on this environment, on this world, on you, is what we need to be talking to our children about. So, thanks.
Yeah, man. There's some things that started coming to mind listening to what you had to say about that. And one of them is the idea of a superorganism and how the bee individually, whether it's a queen or a worker or a drone, is that's an organism, that's an individual, but they make up they without their hive, they're going to wither and die. They're so much of a social, communal organism that the hive itself is dictating where all those individuals are going and what they're doing. And it's not like the queen is like the mastermind telling them all what to do. It's like the spirit of this hive is organizing them. And
Speak up, Joy.
the hive itself is the superorganism, and it's functioning on this level that's pretty much dictating what all the individuals are going and doing on a daily basis. And human beings are on the individual level, each one of us, but you could argue, and I think what's his name, Chris Ryan, he's an author. He wrote Sex at Dawn, and he's got a great podcast called Tangentially Speaking. He's got a new book coming out where he's talking about corporations being a form of a superorganism.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not acting with the individual's best interests in mind. You could say that these superorganisms are they're a projection of our cumulative shadow as a species, because they seem to have their own agenda. And it's like you were saying earlier, there's maybe two schools of working with bees, and one is profit oriented, with profit over people in importance, and then there's those of us who are, people before profit, obviously, and maybe even just, progress and healing and community and a spiritual connection over profit, obviously. So in a way, I feel like, conversations like this and just getting the word out there and educating one another on what's going on as far as like our individual health and our collective health, and our connections with things like bees and sex. Why is that sex talk with the kids so uncomfortable? And like maybe even there's so much perversion and taboo and just strange twisted things that come up when you start thinking about, I got to talk to my kids about sex. In a similar way, you open up a beehive, and most people, myself included, is like, it's so foreign, all this behavior. It's like, what are they doing? What's going on in here? It's like this alien thing that's going on, but it's crucial to my survival as an individual. So like just becoming informed enough to just have that become common knowledge, I think, is a great place to start, as far as recognizing, like, yeah, we all need to eat. We all like to have our little specific breakfast favorites when we sit down and eat every day. Where does it come from? What is the future of that? And how am I involved with it? How little am I involved with just even my connection with my food?
Do you know your farmer? Do you know where you got any of your food from? Do you have any idea where it came from?
It's hard to find someone that doesn't love honey.
Will your farmer eat his fertilizers?
Will your farmer eat his fertilizers?
That's a really big one. Now we're talking about Korean natural farming, which, thank God for Korean natural farming. Would you eat your fertilizer that you feed your trees? Would you just take a handful of whatever it is that you just fed your tree and put it in your mouth? With Korean natural farming, you can, you will, you do.
It's good.
It's good.
It's
You put that shit on your pancakes in the morning.
So I tried to research there's like not much, there's like no information about the U.S. Honeybee Corporation. The only thing I was able to find is that there's this guy named Mr. A.D. He has like over 92,000 hives in Dakota, and he's considered the largest like beekeeper in the world. And in 2000.
He was paid by Monsanto, hired by Monsanto.
Yeah. And in 2016, 44% of the commercial bees had died. And this is just this is a quote from their website, the New York Times, and it says, over the last 5 years, I think this small industry could easily have lost $1.2 billion worth of bees, Mr. Addy said. To put it in context, the total United States commercial bee business had a value of only about $500 million in 2012, and this is according to the Honeybee Advisory Council, which is created by Monsanto. So they're all interrelated. They have, you know, agendas in mind, and it's easy to villainize Monsanto, but you know, they talk about the problems, but natural farming has the solutions. And it was such a privilege to be on Molokai, because about 2/3 of the island on the western side is a complete desert. You know, the ground is like clay, but it's as hard as cement. And everywhere you look, it's just fallow land. You can see above from the plain, like the rivers and the valleys have just kind of dried up.
2 of the 3 aquifers are dried up, and the soil is dry, and there are dust storms in the middle of the ocean. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and luckily there's natural farmers on Molokai who are doing some incredible work. His name is Gregerson Ryder. If you want to go check him out on the island. He basically started from nothing, and he's living on a Hawaiian homestead, and in the middle of, like, right next to Monsanto, literally like 5 feet away is the fence line of Monsanto. He has this little oasis in the middle of the desert where you stick your hand in the ground and there's worms, there's mycelium, there's olena, there's sugarcane, there's bananas, there's taro, there's everything's growing in the middle of the desert. And when I flew over it on Molokai, I looked at the plane and I'm like, why is there like this little patch of green? I was like, oh, I wonder if that's where I'm going. And like, sure and behold, like that's where I was headed. And in a quick amount of time with the microbes, we can remediate the soil and we can reverse what we're all experiencing from Monsanto. And it's time to like not point fingers and just like bring the solution. And
just
if that
do it.
means bringing the solutions to their doorstep, like, you know, natural farming right along their border, like, and bringing the bees and proving that
do it.
we can have these naturally farmed bees right next to Monsanto and they're still thriving.
They're thriving way better than those bees that are being fed all of these chemicals, and they're literally dying in mass quantities, 50 to 60% every year. And yet here this somebody can be literally right next to them, not give their bees any chemicals at all, any antibiotics at all, and they're thriving. And they don't have to winterize them in a specific way with chemicals. And you know, we could talk about this shit all day, and I think now we're gonna have to have a part 2 of this because, you know, we're kind of getting to a time limit here. But what I would like to maybe preface the next episode is what Gentle Hive is doing. I don't want to always make everything all about Gentle Hive, but I really do need support. We really do need support. I finally have the team that I pretty much have always dreamed of having, and we're working hard. David has so much knowledge, and he's studying all the time, and Joey, you know, like, god damn, like, it's just so exciting to have people that give a shit, that get up in the morning, get their ass to work, and you know, we do believe that we can make a difference, and part of that is like what you're saying, just get out there and do it. Just start doing it. And if you personally can't, don't feel bad. If you personally can't, stop working. You're at your 9 to 5. You're working 50 hours, 60 hours a week, and you just want to spend the rest of the time with your kids. Fine, do it. Do that. Just throw your support. Throw your support in the way of people that you know are making a difference, people that you know are making an impact. That's important. You know, you do your research. Find out where you can help and how you can help. Because let's face it here, we're a small nonprofit. We're doing all kinds of amazing research, yet we need thousands and thousands of dollars to do this research. And as long as we're so involved with our nonprofit, well, we don't exactly have the access to that thousands of dollars unless you guys support us. So
we're going to be having a Indiegogo campaign. It's in the works, and that's something that those of you out there can do. We're going to do our best to just present information, and whether or not you can, you know, throw a few bucks our way, you can always just share the information. You can share it on Facebook, point people towards our YouTube stuff, and we just want people to be informed and share their opinion too. If you've got something that you want to contribute just based on your experience or on your background, then that feeds into this whole project that we're doing too.
Yeah, we need all the help we can get. Even even if like for instance, there's 15 people watching right now, but you haven't watched the whole thing. Comment on it, so it pops up in your feed more. It'll show up on your notifications, so you get a reminder to watch it maybe tonight before you go to bed or something, and then and share it. Share when we do finally launch our Indiegogo campaign. Share it, like it, do all that good stuff, and follow our podcast. We're going to be feeding you as much information as we possibly can get, especially thanks to David being here now.
And if you're in the Puna area and you just like listen to this podcast and you're like, what is natural farming? What is Korean natural farming? And you want to learn more, I'm going to be hosting a workshop here in the next couple weeks. A portion of those profits are going to go directly towards our research and our study. So if you want to learn how to make these fermentations and work with the microbes and practice and put these principles and these philosophies into action, then yeah, just reach out, come on by. We'd love to share this process of co-creation.
And that's probably the thing I love most about you guys is they really love to share. They're not about having this stronghold on any of the information that they've gained. They want everybody to have it. They want everybody involved. Share.
That's really what I think we're coming back to. We started out talking about villainization and, the burnout that comes with just digging into even just your personal shadow, but the collective shadow and what we're working with on this planet right now. And, we like to stay focused on the solution. So presenting that first off is important, I think, and knowing what we're up against and knowing what we're ultimately going to be working with. There are human beings that make up Monsanto too, and those are people that we're going to be working with at some point along this line. So
Monsanto has created problems. Gentle Hive has solutions.
Exactly.
Yes, we do.
I also wanted to you start talking about getting involved and learning about Korean natural farming techniques. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in that and how you got into it?
Sure, yeah. I first got exposed to Korean natural farming from my brother Drake on the Big Island.
Eric Weiner.
Immediately got hooked, started taking, several classes, immediate, and then did advanced trainings with Master Cho. Had the privilege of going to South Korea and studying with Master Cho for about 9 days. And since then, I've worked extensively on Drake's farm. And then the last, before I was in Molokai for the 3 weeks prior, I was on KNF, Aloha Natural Farming Educational Tour, where we started in Santa Monica, cruised up to Arcata, Humboldt County, through Oregon, up to Olympia, Seattle, all the way to Bellingham, and then back down to Big Sur. And we taught about 5 workshops and was spreading the Aloha and spreading this information as much as possible.
I'm happy to be a part of all this. It's very exciting, and I choose to let the excitement overshadow, the more daunting aspects of what we've been talking about, because that's how it's all going to happen.
It seems like a huge wall. I mean, it really does. It's just sometimes I can look at that wall and stare up at it and just say, "Damn, wow, that's big." But then there's days like right now in this moment, anything and everything seems possible. And when we all come together, it's infinite, the possibilities. I mean, really, it's infinite. What we have no limits. And just as one influence has appeared to be the dominant influence, it could just as easily turn with your impact in the opposite direction. Whatever you want to influence can manifest to be that wall in the opposite direction, and in a beautiful direction. Instead of a wall, maybe we could call it a big, beautiful rainbow or something like that.
It's a hurdle, It's a rainbow hurdle. And, we're doing it because we love it.
Yeah.
Not because we feel like we have to or because no one else is going to do it. I have fallen in love with this this work with the bees, and I'm just scratching the surface on the Korean natural farming world, and that's where all this excitement is welling up from. And getting up in the morning and knowing that that's what I get to be doing with my day it's an amazing gift. So I just want to keep sharing that and you know, getting deep into it, because I find it to be one of the most important things that I've stumbled across in this life.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome back, David.
David!
Thanks everybody for watching and commenting. Please share what you feel like sharing. We'll be back next Monday.
Yeah, may all the beneficial microbes be with you.
Yes! Love you guys. Oh, shit. There we go. Finish already. It doesn't want to finish.